What's up, everybody? Welcome to System Crafters Live. I'm David Wilson, and we're back again with another Friday stream where we get together as a community and talk about whatever topic I've come up with for the week. And this week is no exception. Let's see. Hello to Anton in the YouTube chat. Let's see who else we got. In the IRC, we got Jeff and GazJ82, Redacted, Glenn, Dazaj, Alternate Ved, Trev. Who else? Captain No Beard is here. Gabrielle, Valentino, AFM Victoria. Dave's here. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. If you missed it, I just did another like 2.5 hour stream on Flux Harmonic, only on Twitch, not on YouTube, just to have a little bit of fun, do a little bit of scheme hacking. I was working on the bot that we were building maybe 4 weeks ago or so on this stream. But I have some other things I want to do with it, so I'm kind of like, I'll do some one-off streams here and there to hack on the bot code so that we can start using it in the IRC and Matrix channels. And what else? Oh, yeah, and I played Call of Duty for about an hour at the end of the stream as well, so that was kind of fun. Got some good games in today. So if those things sound interesting to you, definitely subscribe to the Flux Harmonic Live channel on Twitch. I'll probably start streaming on YouTube for that as well. Flux Harmonic Live on YouTube at some point. I don't really have a strong concept for what I'm going to be doing on the streams in the near future. Just kind of playing around every now and then. So if you're interested to follow those, be sure to subscribe to the channels, and you can check out what I'm doing. Hello to Tarji, Ed, Sergey, Rickard, Yash. Thanks all for being here. Appreciate it. Okay, let's get into the news really quickly. So I want to tell you that registration is still open for the next hands-on Guile Scheme for Beginners iteration. I talked about this last week. Did I announce it last week? All the weeks are sort of blurring together for me now, so I can't really keep track of when I said something. But I just serving as a reminder that this time I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently. It's going to be 8 weeks instead of 4 to give people more time to work on the exercises and absorb the content. Also more time to chat on the private forum area for participants of the course so that everybody can ask questions about the exercises or about the material. I'll be there, obviously, to answer questions, but then everybody else can chat with each other, too. I think it's going to be a really fun learning environment for learning Scheme and also Guile Scheme, obviously. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out the link here that I have. It will take you to the landing page for the course. Also, special announcement. A member of the community... let's say a member of the community, is looking to sponsor a spot at the course for anybody who's really motivated to learn Scheme but can't afford to pay for a course right now. Whether you're like a student, maybe you're early in your career, or any other reason. If you're interested in possibly taking advantage of this, reach out to me via email. Just send me a little bit of information about why you want to join the course, and I'll see if I can set that up. But I was kind of like really surprised and like very pleasantly surprised that actually 2 people came to me about this, and both of you know who you are. Thank you very much for doing that. But being willing to sponsor a position for someone else in the course just because they liked it when I went to it the first time, they wanted other people to be able to join too. So super awesome. Really happy that we have such kind community members who would be willing to do something like that. So just let me know if that's something you're interested in. Just send me an email, and we can chat more about it. I also sent out a newsletter this week. I think it's probably the first time I've sent out newsletters in 2 consecutive weeks in a year, I think. So check that out. I did make a big change to this as well, where I've actually finally stopped talking about it, and I finally did it. I created an HTML format for the newsletter so that it actually looks better on typical mail apps, especially on mobile. However, it turns out that Gmail likes to destroy all of my hard work that I spent 2 or 3 days on this week, and they don't show the background color that I set in the HTML template for the email, because apparently you have to set it on a table. You have to put all of your content for your email in an old school HTML table and then set the background color on the table, because if you set it like any other sane person on the body element of the HTML that you're putting in the email, Gmail just throws it away. So if you look at my email, you're gonna see a white background with a bunch of like light green text and light purple text in certain places because it uses the colors of the System Crafters website. So anyway, if you use Gmail and you receive the newsletter this week and it's not very readable, it's not my fault, it's Gmail's fault. I blame Google and I blame LeftPad. So anyway, next week it will be better. I'm committed to like trying to get a new newsletter out each week because I think it's a nice way to kind of share thoughts that I have that are relevant to what we're doing in the community. Like this week I was sort of writing about sort of the mission of System Crafters. Just been thinking about that for a while and I wanted to write something down about it. I don't know if people really resonate with it, but it's meaningful to me. So Dave says HTML email is complete nonsense. Well, yeah, it is kind of nonsense, but if you look at my newsletter in a normal mobile mail app, the text version anyway, it doesn't look very good because they don't use monospace fonts and they wrap the lines and it just all hell breaks loose. So other interesting point is that I'm actually using MIME types for sending both HTML and text email in the mailing list now. So you'll get both the HTML version and the old school text formatted version like I was doing before in the same email. So you can tell your email client to show you only the text version if you want that. Dave says, I don't mean it in a don't use HTML way, but in the every client renders a different way. Yeah, no, I figured that out pretty fast. It doesn't really work well. I'd heard like sort of negative stories about making HTML email templates, but I didn't really know like why it would be a problem. But then I tried to do it and I realized pretty fast that Gmail is the worst offender. The others probably aren't so great either. I would imagine Outlook doesn't do very well with it, but Mjolnir says, hi Dave, why is the key casting at the top? Just so you can see what keys I'm pressing. Michael in the chat says, the mission statement really resonated with me. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I did see your post about that on the forum too. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, anyway, basically the idea behind the mission for System Crafters is that, I want to focus on this idea of elevating computer enthusiasts to experts of code and craft. That's the statement. So we're all computer enthusiasts here. You're here because you like Emacs or you like Geeks or you like Linux or you like whatever, the tools that we use. So you're here because you enjoy these things. But also probably you see some value in writing code and putting tools together yourself, crafting your system a certain way and making it a very personal environment for you. And I just kind of want to like double down on this idea that this community is about learning how to do all this stuff, learning to program even if you're not a programmer, and also to teach other people or to share what you've learned with other people, because that kind of community is capable of really helping a lot of people to grow and accomplish their goals and even like create new goals that they didn't even know that they would want to have. But maybe you learn some cool stuff about Emacs and Emacs Lisp, and then you kind of scale up and you want to learn how to write programs in various different languages. I think that this is a nice place for people to sort of be exposed to different ideas, different technologies, different ways of doing things, and then learn a whole lot. So that's what I'm excited about. Let's see. Benoit says text emails look really nice in Emacs. Yes, they do. I think even probably the HTML version of the email will look pretty good in Emacs. I haven't looked at it yet, but I imagine it does look pretty good. Someone told me, was it Jeff? Someone told me that in MU4E, the mail looked good. Let's see what else in the chat here. Gaz82 says, I've just finally managed to move away from Gmail as a host. Use Fastmail. Like I said on Mastodon this week, I believe that Fastmail is the best email host or the best email provider for many reasons. Maybe we can talk about that another time. I did reply to a message on that thread to explain why, but it's just, it's been really good for me. I appreciate Fastmail a lot. Okay. Gun says, I read the newsletter in Thunderbird and it looked like I was reading a page on systemcrafters.net. Same corporate design. Corporate design? Is it corporate? I don't think it's corporate. I don't think corporate websites use like a dark blue background. Dave says, I've been meaning to switch my personal mail to Fastmail. Yeah, you should. There's an affiliate link to Fastmail in the description of the video. So if this is a stream sponsored, if not, why not? Actually, I asked him about that probably about a year ago. I said, look, I like Fastmail. I would like to promote it on my channel. Do you have like something for creators? And they're like, oh yeah, we're working on it. We're not ready yet. And that was a year ago. So I do have an affiliate link, but the way that it works is that they just give you extra money against your bill, which is kind of dumb because, you know, that's not really a motivator for someone to promote their affiliate link, but whatever. I will promote it without the financial incentive just because I think it's great. Michael says Proton Mail. I haven't tried Proton Mail yet. I know that a lot of people use it. I know it's probably better on the privacy aspect, but for me, Fastmail has a lot of functional reasons why it's better. Osloy, hello Osloy, says also email self-host. I always get scared off from doing that because I keep hearing about how self-hosted email often doesn't reach their destination whenever you try to send email to other people. I know that if you set up all like the DKIM and all the other stuff, that maybe it's a little bit better, but it's still like random in terms of the eyes of Gmail or Outlook or the other big email providers. So I would rather have my emails get delivered and not have to like maintain my own email infrastructure. It's fun, sort of. And Dave says it's not fun. Well, it can be fun and not fun, but I don't think I want to spend my time on that. Gunn says, watch the Red Bull cans flashing up from time to time. I wish I was sponsored by Red Bull. That'd be awesome. No, I'm sponsored by System Crafters today. Only System Crafters. Benoit says, you still need to set up DKIM and other stuff with Fastmail if you could use custom domains. That's true, but I feel like whenever the receiver of the mail, like Gmail, looks at your records and sees that it's connected to Fastmail, it probably assigns a higher trust value to that than to just some random server on the internet. That's my guess, though. I don't know for sure. Redacted said, I had some trouble with Proton Mail mangling certain aspects of emails when using IMAP and their bridge. That's not good. Ethan says, Proton Mail is unfortunately not any more secure, not in the ways that really matter anyway. I haven't heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me. All right. Pyramid Builder says, corporate design, lol. Okay. Visit today's sponsor, store.systemcrafters.net. Yeah, don't go to that store. Go to the other store, systemcrafters.store, which doesn't have all the stuff on it yet. You might have noticed I have this nice little hat here with a wheel on it. That's coming soon. I just haven't finished like putting all the things together on that yet. But the store where the course is currently for sale is also where the new merch will be. Like, I don't really want to like do the same merch over again. I kind of want to do some new ideas and like make it a little bit more interesting, but it's kind of like the lowest on the priority list. But I want to have some good merch. To be frank with you, merch doesn't really it doesn't really help the channel very much in terms of like the financial aspect, but it is cool to have merch and for people to be able to buy merch. So I got to do some more work on that. Shom says, hey Shom, is catching up on the stream. I can confirm that the HTML mail looks good on Proton Mail on Firefox desktop and Proton Mail Android app. Thank you. Glad to hear that. Okay. Hello to all the people who are joining. Bart K says, I use Postio Mail. I've heard of Postio, but I haven't looked at it at all. Oslo says, yes, that's been my experience. First email I send to a new person goes to spam. Yeah, I think you have to like build that social proof in a way where your private email server sending mail to someone else, like they have to say, oh, this is not spam. And then the mail provider learns that your provider is not spam, not a spam host. So yeah, not really something I want to spend my time on, even though it's one of those projects you could easily get nerd sniped into spending a lot of hours, like setting up your own your own email server. Gunn says, from head to toe covered in cogwheels, the new spring System Crafters collection. Yes, maybe, probably not. I need to have some more fun ideas for merch, not just the freaking logo. Like, we need some, some catchy slogans or some memes from the channel to put on some shirts and stuff. Which means I need to like do a better job of doing dumb stuff on the stream to create more memes. All right. So that's it. Sign up for the newsletter so you can get the one that's going to come out next week, because I'm very consistent with sending out newsletters and doing the things I'm supposed to be doing. So you'll probably receive one next week, but maybe not. Who knows? I might get busy with the course. Ashra says, DIY System Crafters hoodie consists of wool and knitting needles. Yeah, you should really go from scratch on that whole thing. Okay, this week, I'm going to experiment with a new model for the weekly streams. Now, obviously, it doesn't look very different so far, but what I want to do is to come up with a few new show concepts that we'll try to rotate over the course of 4 or 5 weeks. So basically like having 4 or 5 different types of streams that we do at the same time, as we always do. But just like to keep things fresh and to have a kind of a repeatable type of stream that reappears here and there. So I've done other ones in the past, like .file detective, which I thought was a cool concept, but I just never really got back to it. But I am going to start doing that again. In fact, I will probably be soliciting volunteers for .file detective on the forums. So on the forums, soon you will see posts show up where I will ask people, do you want to have your configuration, any part of your configuration, could just be the Emacs config, could be your Geeks config, other system configuration files, whatever, just your total .files repo, anything you want. If you want to have me look at your configuration on a stream, either just to see what kind of interesting stuff you've done with it, or maybe like you have questions about your configuration, maybe, or just anything else like that. Just a way for like, to put more spotlight on the people in the community and the cool stuff that everybody's working on. Probably also will have the person on to chat while I'm going through it, maybe even demo parts of their config, because it's very difficult for me to, set up someone else's configuration and try to run it. Tried that before, it didn't really work out too much. Benoit says, even Nix config? Yes, even Nix config, because there's lots I can learn about Nix. I haven't used Nix since 2014, so I think it's pretty useful to take a look at other people's configurations, especially ones that are not like mine. Eric, hey Eric. Eric says, I wrote this on System Crafters, but now writing it in the correct room. Your newsletter looks good in HTML mode in GNUs. That's nice. Glad to hear that. So definitely let me know if you would be interested in having your configuration detected or examined in the .file detective streams. Some other ideas that I have. Let's see, Crafter Chat, which is more of like an interview session where I interview someone from maybe like package authors or interesting people in the free software community, things like that. I definitely am going to talk to Alpha Papa at some point soon, because I've already talked to him about that. Also, I might do some chatting about Zettelkasten soon or Zettelkasten, I don't remember how to pronounce it, with Christian. I'm blanking on Christian's last name right now. But anyway, I got people in mind already. I still need to have Prot on the stream at some point. I talked to him about that maybe 2 years ago, and it never materialized because of me. But maybe now he can't do it because he's living out his hut lifestyle, which I think is pretty cool. But I don't really know how easy he can. He streams, so maybe he can join the stream. What else? What was I calling it? Anyway, I have another concept where I basically like try something new, but I do it badly on purpose, kind of like that Hyperland stream where I started off with good intentions, but then as time went on, I just started doing everything wrong because it was funny, but also because it kind of tested the limits of the thing we were working on. So I would like to do some more streams like that because it's fun. There was another one too I had, but I can't remember. Anyway, let's not blow all the surprises, but that's what I'm thinking right now. We're going to do some rotating show concepts and just see how that goes. So this week, we're going to do one called Code Dive, which is a stream segment where we deep dive into the code of a package, program, or library to discover interesting patterns and see how we might use these insights that we gain for our own projects. And to do that, we're going to take a look at the built-in Project.el package in Emacs to see what interesting things we can learn from it. Anything's fair game for Code Dive. Like I can already think about, let's say Dave Thompson's Chickadee game development library for Guile. Like he's been doing a lot of really interesting work on that lately. I would like to take a deeper look into the code. I've looked at the code before, but never in like a very structured way. So certainly could look at that library, could look at like the inner workings of Geeks, could look at other interesting programs, as a source code of other programs, other Emacs packages, etc. So if you have ideas for how, what programs or packages or libraries, etc., that you would like to take a look at more deeply with the, take a look at the code more deeply, let me know, and we will take a look at that on another stream. Let's see. Someone mentioned JMap. Oslo says, what is JMap? JMap is a JSON-based, is it JSON-based? Yeah, JSON-based protocol, sort of like a replacement for IMAP. It's being developed by the people who run Fastmail, but it's actually got IETF standards, I think, or RFCs that are being developed for it. And it basically gives you an API that you can use to access, manage your email, contact lists, etc., in a more traditional API way instead of using IMAP or something else like that. That's actually how you receive the newsletter this week. I actually have got JMap code that I wrote in JavaScript because JavaScript is easier to get a lot of these things off the ground with, that sends the newsletter from my Fastmail account and does the multi-part encoding so that you have the HTML version and the text version of the email. So if you want to be able to automate sending emails from your code using your own email account, especially if you're a Fastmail user, definitely check out JMap because you can do some cool stuff with that. I'm quite happy with it. I'm actually sending invites for the course with that as well. Like when someone buys a course on the store website, it sends a webhook to my server, and my server then sends an email using JMap with my personal email account with an invite to the forum, like a custom invite for the forum. So pretty cool. I don't know, like you can craft some cool stuff with JMap. Gunn says, nothing beats good old SendMail config. Yes, that's certainly possible to still use SMTP or SendMail. Same thing, right? Ashraz says, Kasten is correct. Kasten. I don't know which one is which, though. I don't know which pronunciation the umlaut gives. But you're supposed to have a single Kasten. Okay, Gunn says, Zettel Kasten, like custom, singular. Zettel. Okay, I can't map that one right now. Deep dive into GNUs. That would be interesting. Yeah, GNUs I haven't used in a while. Big Edie says, can one of the segments be us live coding EWWM? After trying out Hyperland, Wayland just felt so smooth, but not willing to give up Emacs managing my windows. I would love to do that, but that's a big project, something like that. Kasten, like bat. Okay, thank you. Benoit says, SendMail sends mail using SMTP. Okay. Eric says, every time I try anything other than GNUs, I end up coming back. Adaptive scoring wins for me every time. So I don't need adaptive scoring because my solution is just not to read my email. If I don't read my email, I don't need any scoring because it all goes to the same place, which is just the bottom of my inbox. So yeah, that's how it works. Rudy in the chat says, a format suggestion, fix bugs in Emacs, contributing patches upstream, all live. I actually did that once before, and I don't think we made very much progress. However, I would be willing to try it again. I would certainly be willing to try that again. That would be pretty cool, I think. Let's see. Big Edie says, you've got a community behind you. Hey, you know, I want to put the effort of the community behind a good project or set of projects, but I feel like I need to have the focus and time to help contribute and keep things moving. I don't want to like completely become an absent maintainer like I did with Crafted Emacs, and Jeff Bowman really saved my bacon on that one, because Jeff took that farther than I was probably going to do. But yeah, I want to make sure that if I kick off any projects, they're going to actually live and progress, and people will be able to onboard and actually contribute to them. So I'm not opposed to that. I definitely would like to do it. It's just, it needs to be the right project at the right time. Osloy says, I submitted to fix the Emacs about 9 months ago. Still hasn't been accepted or rejected. That's always a problem. It's definitely a problem with geeks too. Like, you'll submit a patch and it will stay there forever. And not really because nobody cares, but because there's so many patches and not enough maintainers to look them all, because it's a lot of work. Like, if you're a maintainer and you've got that many packages coming in every day, it doesn't matter if you've divided the work up between different maintainers. There's still a lot of patches, and it's not so easy to just look at a patch and say, okay, cool, that's good. You have to really think about what the implications are, especially if it's going to break anything that somebody else is already using. So difficult. Gaz says, Emacs from scratch got a nice mention in Mastering Emacs. Really? I didn't know that. That's cool. I'll have to check the latest version of Mastering Emacs. Yes, and if you don't have a copy of Mastering Emacs, time to sell. Check out the link in the description, because Mickey Peterson, the author of Mastering Emacs, has very kindly set up an affiliate link that helps the community whenever you buy a copy of Mastering Emacs. So check that out in the description. Jeff says, Crafted Emacs V2 has either been such a win that people aren't finding issues with it, or is not in use. Can't tell. I choose to believe the former. I know that a few people are using it. Gun's definitely using it. I think that Glyneth may be using it. So I hear of people using it. It's not that nobody's using it, but the problem is I haven't really been plugging it recently, because I think I just have too many things in my head that are just competing for my, I wouldn't call it attention. Just jostling each other for just a moment in the spotlight. So I need to do a better job at that. Redacted says, is there a path to becoming a Geeks maintainer to help with those patches? Yes, there is. In fact, they mention it in the Geeks manual. So Geeks manual contribution. Contributing. Where is it? Commit access. Everyone can contribute to Geeks without having commit access. However, for frequent contributors, having write access can be convenient. You should have accumulated 50 reviewed commits to be considered as a committer, and sustained activity in the project for at least 6 months. So there's a little bit of guidelines for that. But you should consider contributing a lot if you want to. In fact, you can review patches even if you're not a maintainer, and you can help to shepherd things along a little bit, because a lot of people don't have time to go check up on the patch that they submitted. So if you can go onto a patch thread, review their code, and then ping somebody from the maintainer team, or go into the Geeks channel in IRC and ping people and just say, hey, has anybody had a chance to look at this yet? Maybe if you've reviewed it yourself and replied to the thread, maybe you'll help, you'll help push some things along. I would imagine they'd be very happy to have people coming in helping to review, even if you're not a maintainer. So give it a shot. I think it's a good idea. Osloy says, open Emacs in a GDB session. That could be pretty interesting. Let's see. All right. So let's get into it. I just keep talking and talking. You guys should stop me. Just don't let me continue talking so much. Just tell me to get on with it. Let's get on with the actual topic of the day. You don't sit. You're not coming here just to listen to me ramble for how long? 35 minutes. All right. So Project.el. Obviously, I could just look at the code that's in Emacs for this. In this Emacs, I'm gonna lose my voice. Nah, probably not. It could happen. It has happened before, but probably not. So I wonder if I should look at the actual latest code for Project.el and not what's in Emacs, but maybe it's better to look at what's in Emacs. I guess the first question is, what am I using? Find library. MetaX find library is a great little tool. I can type in project and jump right to the code for that. Let's see, where am I? Okay, so apparently this is, I've installed Emacs Project, and this is version 0.10.0. Let's go to ELPA really quick. And what version is it here? Project 0.10.0. Okay, so that's good enough. I mean, that's the one that's currently the stable release from September of last year. So we can take a look at that one. That makes sense. So this is installed via Geeks, but it is the same one that you would get from ELPA, I think. Okay, so first of all, in any Emacs Lisp package, you're going to have these super long header files. And if you've written many Emacs Lisp files and you've got, what is it, EL, is it L? It's not LDoc, is it? Or is it just flight check? Anyway, usually you'll get a lot of markers in the file saying, oh, you need the commentary section, or you need the header, blah, blah, blah. There's a standard format to Emacs Lisp files like this, where you have the name of the file and the description of what the file is. Oftentimes you'll see this lexical binding T at the top because it's a newer feature of Emacs as of like Emacs 27, I think, which changes the rules for how variable scopes work in Emacs Lisp. Don't really need to discuss that. But other things like the copyright, the version of the file, the package requires, which I think this may actually get used for installing dependencies of the packages. So maybe the package manager is able to read this and install these as well. Also, you can say which version of Emacs you require at least. Then you get all the description about what the package is, and then whether it is a part of Emacs or not. Apparently, I don't know why that's a convention. Maybe it's because of the GPL. But if you say it's not a part of Emacs or it is a part of Emacs, this one is a part of Emacs because it's built in by default. Then we have the short form of the GPL because it's GPL licensed as it's part of Emacs. Commentary section, which is just sort of like the description of what's in the file. You can learn a lot of interesting stuff by looking at this. And I'm not exactly sure where this part shows up. Is there a way to look at this information in some other form? Describe library, or is it like help library? Auto insert. Oh, is auto insert, does that work? I was looking for that the other day. Auto insert. Insert default context into new files. Let's try that out because I was actually looking for that. Test.el. Auto insert. Oh, cool. This is a test. Keyword. What is this? Keywords. Emacs. A match is required. Thank you very much, org. What keywords do we have then? None of these. Hypermedia, of course. Of course, hypermedia and C. Anyway, that's just me complaining about the options. But thanks, Ashraz. I forgot about that. Okay. Oh, that's it. Thanks, Jeff. Describe package. Describe package project. Excellent. So is that the same information? Yes. This file contains generic infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. That's the same thing. All right, cool. So describe package is the way to get all this information here, which is great. What else does it have aside from just the commentary? Utils. Okay, that's there too. Commands, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whoa. There's some to-do items here, and apparently something in my config is turning those into org items. So maybe we should just gloss over this commentary really quick in case it has any interesting stuff that we might want to look at. All right, so there's a public API. Let me back up for a second. Project.el is a built-in Emacs package that gives you common functionality for managing basically programming projects or any actions that need to be taken around a version control repository, like a Git repository, or maybe other types of version control, or any kind of custom thing that you can sort of say is a project, and you have some ability to control what things get determined as a project or not. So things like finding files within the project, jumping to directories in the project, searching across all files in the project, running tasks in the project, like if you want to compile the project or run tests, many other things like that. Doing version control operations for the project. There's a lot of commands that come with Project.el. It's a very useful package. Many people used to use something called Project.el in the past, which is more featureful than Project.el, and it's very targeted towards programming language, or I guess programmers that are using programming languages that have a lot of tooling around them. So Project.el was sort of the first option for that in the past, but I've personally been using Project.el for maybe the last 2 or 3 years, and I find it to be very sufficient for all the things that I want to do. I barely even scratch the surface of all the things that it can do. So if you use a lot of Git repositories and you're working with buffers inside of those repositories, it's actually a nice way to isolate what you're doing to just that project, like finding files in the project, switching between buffers in the project, etc. So it can be a nice part of your workflow. So the reason why I want to take a look at this is because it is pretty useful. We might be able to learn a lot of cool things from it. We might also be able to see some things in the code that are interesting Emacs Lisp patterns that you can use in your own projects. So there's a lot of reasons why looking at the code will be very useful for us. Grolix says, you're one of the best dev tech live streamers. Keep it up. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Maybe one day we will ascend past the 100 live participant category and get to higher numbers. Maybe more people will find out about the streams, but until then, we'll just be yammering on about Emacs and geeks. Let's see. Morgan says the finder commentary command will view the commentary. Interesting. Find commentary? Finder commentary. Huh. Okay. That's cool. I did not know about that. Thank you. You can export the header information, look at the library Lisp MNT. All right, nice. Okay, so let's take a look at the information here. Big Edie says, even if we hit 100, I hope we're still yammering about Emacs and geeks. Well, here's the thing. It is possible to do quote unquote system crafting without Emacs and geeks, but I have not found a set of tools that enables you to do it in this way. Maybe Nix, but still, like, I don't know. There's just something to it that I think that there's no way we're gonna like deviate from that. We have a nice little pocket here, a nice little niche, so we're gonna stick with it. We'll broaden a little bit. We'll cover sway and some other stuff that is relevant, at least things that I feel are relevant. But there's a specific mindset here that we're gonna stick with. Now Katani says, Team Mux in Vim arc perhaps. I would do that as a way to learn what we can learn from using NeoVim and TeamMux, etc., because that's another way to do things. A lot of people like using terminal apps. I think it's kind of cool, but I'm personally not going to switch to that. I get a lot of value out of Emacs. Zalige, yeah. Zalige is cool, but I haven't used it since then. So the public API, the function project current that returns a current project instance based on the value of the hook project find functions. There's a lot that's baked into that right there. Fade says, oh man, David Will gets famous and it's suddenly VS Code all the time. No way in hell. Sorry. No way in hell. If you see me using VS Code, then you will probably see the tip of a gun at the edge of the frame. Like, I don't know, can you see that? Nothing against VS Code. VS Code is a nice tool and everything. If people like using VS Code, they should use VS Code. But me, no thanks. I'll probably get myself in trouble for saying that too, because I actually know a lot of the people that work on VS Code. Eric Gama is a very nice guy. I don't want to upset him. Ashra's books ticket to Greece. Are you going to be the button man that forces me to use VS Code? Apparently, I can't actually do a stream topic because then we just start talking about all the random stuff in chat, which maybe is better. Who knows? Should we just talk about random stuff in chat the whole time? Saboto says, leaving Emacs is never a solution. It's a solution until it's not a solution. I think it's a temporary solution. Grolixus says it right. VS Code is loved for a reason, but not all tools are for all people. VS Code is a million times better than Visual Studio. Let's put it that way. Visual Studio is like Eclipse. Visual Studio has reached Eclipse territory. It has eclipsed Eclipse. GozJ82 says, if I close Emacs in my window manager shuts down. Yeah, that was a problem for me, actually. Christina says, I'm personally here for the code. Yeah, I imagine many of you are, and you're probably shaking your fist at the screen like, why does this guy just keep talking? All right, so project current and project find functions. Let's see. So project find functions, let's just jump to some of this stuff. You know, let's not even read it. We're supposed to be looking at the code, not the documentation. Let's just look at the actual code. So we can learn some things about what libraries are being imported, or packages, let's say, are being imported by a project like this. CL generic, CL lib. We can already tell that they're using some common Lisp style patterns. There's also the seek library, which is for sequence operations like lists, etc. And then when compiling, pull in the subr-x, which is like a utilities library, I believe. Hello, Grizzly. All right, so first off, obviously we have the group for the project library. This is where all of the options for, like all the def custom variables for the package get gathered so that they can be shown in the customization view. And then project find functions. It's a list, and it by default has project try VC, which is a function. So this is a special hook to find the project containing a given directory. That sounds kind of weird. To find the project containing a given directory. Maybe it does make sense. So you have a directory in your file system. You're looking for the project that has that directory inside of it, right? The language is a little bit hard to parse, but I think what it's saying is if you're in a file, it will walk the file tree, the directory tree up to find the actual project related to that file, right? Each function on this hook is called in turn with one argument, the directory in which to look, and should return either nil to mean that it's not applicable or a project instance. All right. The only practical limitation is to use values that CL def method can dispatch on, like a const cell or a list or a CL struct. Now that I need to unpack at some point because I didn't know that this was a thing. So project find functions is a list of functions that gets called to determine whether a directory is a part of a project. Let's put it that way. So let's see. Project current directory override. There seems to be a variable you can set to override the project directory. When it's non-nil, project currently will always skip prompting. So let's say you are in a particular folder. Let's see, where can we go for this? TMP, let's go to this TMP writing folder that we were in. I'm gonna put in, there's no Git repo here. If I were to call project current in this folder, it gives me nil, okay? I'm gonna add a directory local variable, add dir local variable for project, nil. We're gonna say nil, which applies to all modes. Project, what was it called? What? Where is it? Project current directory override. Is that actually loaded up? Yeah, okay, it's there. Nil project current directory override. That's so weird that it's not showing up in the completion list. Maybe is it because it doesn't have to be a custom for that, right? Current directory override. All right, this needs to be a string. Home, David Will, dot files. I don't know. Let's see. All right, so I'll go back here. Let's open this init.el file. Yes, I'm applying the variable. I'm saying project current directory override. Now if I run project current it returns vcget.files. Okay, so it does actually override the path. So if you need to do that, you can do that. So that is the project current directory override variable. So it overrides the path. Captain No Beard says, use the embark, Luke. I don't know. Like, tell me the sequence of actions in embark that's going to help that. Grolix says, just curious, how long have you been an Emacs user? On and off since 2005, I want to say. But never that heavily until 2017, I would say. Yeah. Okay. So project prompter is another custom variable, function to call to prompt for a project, called with no arguments and should return a project root dir. Now, it seems they make this customizable, maybe because you would want to have a way to be prompted for different projects. Like, let's say, for instance, you want to list all of the directories in the common folder that you use just for storing your projects. So, like I have project/code. That's where I store all of my code projects. I got a lot of folders in there. And I could replace this project prompter with a function that just lists all of the directories in that path, I think. So prompt for a project directory, prompt for a project name. So there are different prompt functions that you can even use here, it looks like. Prompt the user for a project by name. And who uses that? Project prompter. So project forget project. Okay, so it prompts you for which project to forget. Switch project makes sense. So it calls that project prompter function. If you use it interactively, that is. Okay. And then there could be a custom function. But you can just override this thing, I believe. It doesn't have to be this choice. I think that's only for the customization UI. And it seems this is only added in Emacs 30, or at least that's what it says. That's what I'm gathering from this line here that says version 30.1, is that this is being added in Emacs 30. Okay. However, I think you can install the latest version of Project.el from ELPA inside of your earlier version of Emacs, so it shouldn't matter. All right, so that's Project Prompter. I wonder if we could try to like fool with that a little bit. So if I go into, let's just mess with this file here. Maybe I can, oh, all right. We're not gonna do that. I'm gonna delete this dear locals file so that we don't have to fight with that every time. Yes. Project test.el. I'll give you this file after we're done. So let's take a look at that project.el file again. And we have our little test file on the other side. So if we look at the value of project prompter, that is the project project dir. Try to say that 30 times fast. Okay, so function to call to prompt for a project. So we can call that ourselves, right? Project prompt. No, it's not interactive. Project prompt project dir. Okay, so it does give me the ability to go over the list of possible projects. Then I can select one. Okay, and it just returns a directory. So what if I did that thing? What if I don't know how easy that's going to be. So defun my project prompter. I don't think I need to, it doesn't need to have a parameter. Copilot mode's on. So let's see, directory files. Yes, directory files. Return a list of files, names of files in directory. Full match, no sort count. Is there a way to restrict it only to directories? If match is non-nil, mention only file names whose non-directory part matches the regexp. So what if I run directory? Oh, wait. Can I say directory directories? No. Files. Okay. directory files recursively. Okay, so include directories. What does that mean? I don't want recursive though. It returns me a long list, and I'm not exactly sure. Let me check the output. Oh, it cuts it off. Directory P, directory question mark. I would have to use the F library for that, and I don't really want to. File directory P, is that part of Emacs? Oh, okay. File directory P. Names an existing directory. Let's see. How do you use completing read? Completing read. We're not going to spend much time on this. I'm just kind of like, I want to see if this is how easy this is. Completing read. Completing read is what gives you that little prompt in the mini buffer area. Completing read. Select a project folder. And then we need to have the list of files. I'm going to do this. I think there's a filter function, right? Seek filter. Okay. Require seek filter. Predicate sequence. Okay. And I think I could just put in, what was that? File directory P. Let me actually check that out. Void variable. Oh, that's because it's not scheme. Do it that way. Ah, that's not right. Dot and dot dot. Read file name. Ah, okay. That's actually better. Thank you, Alpha Papa, for saving me from doing something really dumb. Read file name. Select a project folder. And then what I would do next is put the whole path of home, David Will, projects code, projects. I think my keyboard is starting to do weird things. Either that or I'm having a stroke. And then dir is a directory used for file names. What is must match? How do I restrict it to only directories? The return value is not expanded. Let's just go with this for now. Oh, let me put the slash at the end so that it actually does go into the folder path. Oh. Okay. That's kind of weird. Oh, it has a predicate? Ah, yes. Let's dig into how many is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the 5th optional parameter. Nil, nil, nil. File directory P. Okay, that looks like it will work. Crafter bot, cool. Here we go. Let's get rid of that. You should thank Alpha Papa Osloy because he's the one who told us the right way to do this so I don't waste your time. Okay, so my project prompter. Now, I can change. What was that? It was the project prompter. So if I were to use Control X P P, no toilet jokes, please. It will run the project switch project command. And that will switch to a different project. So we see now that it's actually prompting me using projects that it knows about, and they're in other folders aside from just my project's code path. If I evaluate this function and then set project prompter to my project prompter, eval that, then run Control X P P. Now it only gives me folders that are under that path, so I can pick any of these. Erbstmax, what is that? I don't even know what that is. I've written so many little weird things, and I have no idea. Lovely toilet emoji there. I'm surprised it's not Cal 2001 sending that. Anyway, that's something we can leave in our little file that I'll give you in the show notes later. But cool. So that's setting project prompter. And you can do whatever you want with that, basically, just as we saw just now. Project current, excuse me, is a function that returns the project instance in the directory. So basically, it will will check whether it will check for the current project path for the current directory, and then return the project details for it. So in this directory, I could say project current. It's going to tell me nil because there's no project. But if I go to my .files folder, and I run project current down in the mini buffer, it tells me vc get.files, which must be a special pattern for what a project is. So let's try to take a look at what that is. So when no project is found, the result depends on the value of maybe prompt. So perhaps if you put T there, it will project current. If it doesn't find a project, it will actually prompt you for one, which it appears to do here. And I think if you pass in the directory value, it will use that directory instead of the current directory, because otherwise it just uses either that project current directory override that we saw before, which you see right here, or the default directory value, which is the value of the current directory for whatever buffer you're currently looking at. Cool. So that's project current. It basically just gives you details about the project. Now, what is the format that it returns? Okay, see the docstring of project find functions for the general form of the project instance object. Doesn't tell me anything. So it says each function on this hook is called in turn. We saw that already. The exact form of the project instance is up to each respective function. Okay, the only practical limitation is to use values that CLDef method can dispatch on. So what it's saying is it could be any format, and I'm guessing that this matters to the project commands somehow. So let's keep moving. Maybe we'll figure that out in a little bit. So project find in directory. So this little dash here indicates that this is like an internal function to the package, so it's not meant to be called directly, but we can kind of try to understand what it's doing. You give it a directory. It says run a hook with args until success. It's running the project find functions hook, which is effectively functioning as a hook, and then you pass in the directory for it. So project find functions, dear. What does it do then? So if I were to run that directly, project find in directory. I don't know. Let's do the default directory. Returns nil. Okay. I don't know what find a directory means in this case, unless it means find a project in the current directory. Who knows? If I were to put in .files, it would find the .files project. Fine. Project root returns the root directory of the current project. Well, it doesn't really return the root of the current project because you have to pass it a project. If you call project root with no parameter, it gives you an error. But now I understand why. It's because project root is a generic function in the common Lisp sense. So this is a dynamic dispatch style of design where the value of the first parameter actually controls which function gets called. So this is why the format of that project list that comes back from project current matters, because the function call is going to dispatch based on the value of project. So we're saying def generic here is just sort of defining that project root is a generic method in the sense of what Common Lisp has in their object-oriented programming. And then CLDef method is defining an implementation, I think, of project root. But it doesn't seem to be dispatching. So we have project, and then we have context, which is project within root's fallback. So it looks like this is the default implementation, and it just returns the first item of the project roots list. And project roots is defined here for a given project. Return the list containing the current project root. It's obsolete though, so you shouldn't be using it. So what are you supposed to use? Project within roots fallback T. List project root project. Okay. What is this? It's a variable apparently. Def generic is another generic function. Project external roots, return the list of external roots for project. The list of directories outside of the project that are still related to it. Okay, yeah, that's kind of useful for tooling for sure. If the project deals with source code, then depending on the languages used, this list could include the headers, search path, the load path, the class path, and so on. That's kind of nice if it actually has that capability. Project name, it will return the name of the project. It's a generic function, so it depends on the value you pass in, what it actually comes up with. So file name, non-directory, directory file name, project root, project. Okay, so the default implementation is it gets the root directory of the project, it takes the name of the directory, and that's it. Like just uses that as a project name. But apparently you can invent your own way of looking up a project name based on a given project. Return the list of glide patterns to ignore inside dir. That is definitely used whenever you're calling project find files. So project find file. So it will skip everything, like by default, if you're in a Git repo, it will skip everything that's marked in your git ignore file. So this project ignores is a generic Okay, I see an implementation here, I think. Oh, wait. No, that's a pattern. All right. This is a generic method that allows you to define what the ignore files are for a given project. So that's kind of useful for custom projects. Like if you have an actual custom project, your custom project type you're developing for Emacs for whatever reason. Maybe you're loading up a Maven project. You're working on a Java project and you have like the pom.xml or whatever they use for Maven. And you can write your own plugin to Project.el to look into what's in those files and actually provide behavior to these functions. Okay, so project ignores. File completion table, project root. Okay, so the cdr of project. What we saw before wouldn't just be cdr though. Project head transient. Is that destructuring? No. I don't know what this is. Gun says, doesn't Project.el also ignore items in git ignore files? Yeah, it does it using this behavior, I think. Returns a list of files and directories, dirs in project. Okay. So, project files. Whoa. Project files. Project current. Okay, that's going to be null. Captain No Beer says a transient is a kind of temporary project definition as far as I know. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe prompt nil. Directory. We'll just use the dot files path. See, Ashraz? End of... Oh, yeah, sure. Wait a minute. Okay, so it did give me a list of files. So project files lists all the files, probably the non-ignored files under the project path. I don't know what that was. Okay. Project files in directory. That is a defun. Oh, interesting. So it uses the find program to shell out and get a listing of all the files. That's probably faster than just writing a bunch of eLisp code. Okay, that's like a little implementation function. Where is that used? Files in directory. Project files, def generic. All right, there's def method and def generic. Interesting. Okay, so this seems to be how it's switching on the input value. So you see here we have project files. There's two things to look at. CL def project dash files. Let me just do a little embark on this thing. All right, so we have these two lines. One is the def method and one is the def generic. Def generic is sort of like the generic definition of this method, project files. It has a default implementation, it seems, but then there's a project files def method that is specifically for a project value that the head of the list, I think, I'm making a little guess here, is the value VC. And if you check out that project current of the .files folder, you'll see that the very first item in that list that it returns is VC. So I think that what's happening here is that we're saying that this is the implementation of the project files method that whenever you give it a list that has VC as the very first item, it calls this one instead of some other one, right? Gunn says, is that like declaration and definition in C? This is like defining a generic concept of an operation and then defining specific implementations that operate on different inputs. So this is how the CLOS, or Common Lisp object system, is that the right way to say that? Works. Also, Scheme has a related one, like this guy. Well, let's say Guile has one called Goops, which is very similar, like a similar kind of idea. But instead of it being like class hierarchies where you have methods that you inherit and implement, you define a concept of an operation like a generic project files method. It doesn't really do anything. It might have a default implementation, it might not. And then you have individual methods that are defined that customize the operation of that function for a specific type of input. Hopefully that makes sense. Polymorphism, Gunn says. Yes, exactly. But it's polymorphism that is not bounded by a class definition or a class hierarchy. So it's different than typical object-oriented programming where you have to have these huge class hierarchies with virtual functions that you have to override, et cetera, et cetera. Fade says CLOS rules. Yeah, it's certainly interesting. It amazes me that it can be efficient because it seems like it would be terribly inefficient. All right, so that's that. Try VC, project try VC. Fade says the effective methods are cached as they are calculated. Yeah, that it would have to be. Ed Buller says it's value-based multiple dispatch, so you don't need things like the visitor pattern. Yeah, that's very nice. You can, and also it's extensible from the outside. So if you want to add new behavior, you don't have to go edit the original code to add that. You can just add your own method implementation. So if there's some visitor pattern that you're using generic methods to implement, and someone wants to add their own custom node type in your tree walker or whatever, they can just make their own method implementation for the type that they want to operate on, and it works just like anything else. So super flexible. Captain Nobeer says the multiple dispatch does some caching to improve dispatch time, but yeah, there's still some overhead. Yeah, there would definitely be overhead, but if it can be cached, then that's pretty useful. And I think that's why it needs to be specific. Like you saw that a head VC, that's a pretty easy thing to cache because what you're saying is I just want to look at the first item of the list, and if it's VC, do a certain thing. So I'm guessing that it's pretty easy to cache that. Saboto says, is there anyone here that uses Emacs to develop Java projects or Go or Rust? And Peter says, I do a Go project with Emacs now, did Rust previously. I know there's definitely people who are using it for Rust around here. Okay. So let's see, let's get back to it. Rudolph asks a good question. Rudy asks a good question. Why is it head and not car? I don't know. Let's look at CL def method and find out. All right, so head. Okay, so there's specializers. They're called specializers. And there's things like equal, do based on struct types. Built-in types, derived mode specializers. That's kind of cool. So you can basically have methods that are specific to certain Emacs modes. Subclasses, etc. Okay, there's a manual link. Match the argument in a const cell whose car is equal to val. I mean, that's pretty useful because it's really common that you would have either a const pair or a list that starts with some kind of symbol or value that identifies what type of thing it is. So definitely makes sense that that would be the case. All right. But yeah, it's just a convention, I think. It's not actually calling car probably. It's just saying like we're looking at the head of whatever this const pair or list is. Okay. Project external roots. That is an implementation for the head VC. Project subtract directories. Project combine directories. File name as directory. Fun call project VC external roots function. Oh, okay. That's a function. Lisp load path roots. Is that mode specific? Lisp load path roots. What is that? Lisp load path roots. Is that just the value of the load path variable? Yeah. Load path. Probably the same, right? Yeah, if not the same, very similar list. Okay. Okay, that's cool. But it seems like it would have to be mode specific. Project VC external. Oops. VC external. Function that returns a list of external roots. What does it say here? Fix me. Major modes are supposed to set this variable to a buffer local value so we don't have access to the external roots of language A from buffers of language. Okay, so yes, a mode for a given language should be aware of the Project VC external roots concept and be able to provide what the external roots might be, like load paths, etc., which does make sense. I don't exactly know what value that serves unless this is meant for helping things like eglot to find dependency paths for the current project, so you can do like go to definition. Maybe that's what it's for. Let's find out. Maybe if I go to find library TypeScript. I can't type. Project. What am I doing wrong? Okay. Maybe this doesn't have it. Project. No, doesn't have anything. What about find library JavaScript mode? JS2 mode? Who knows? Project VC? No. Oh wait. I swear my E key is ghosting on this keyboard. Okay, let's check out eglot. Project VC. Project VC. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay. External roots. Okay, nice. Now we're starting to see something. So eLisp mode. We see there is this function being set in eLisp mode, but that's the only function I can see actually. All right. I don't know who's setting that. Maybe people aren't doing it yet in their packages, but it seems like it would be useful. So let's see, Project VC backend markers A list. So if you're using a specific kind of version control system, this variable is an A list that allows you to associate a given symbol for like the name of the version control system to a common folder or common file or directory that would be found in a project path, like .git. You would normally have a .git folder in a Git repository folder, right? Same thing for Mercurial or Bazaar, Subversion, Darks, Fossil even, GOT. I don't know what GOT is. GOT, DCVS. Is it? Oh, DVCS? No? Got version control. This is not going to work, is it? Got is like Git, but with an O. Super helpful. That I could not think of a better marketing statement than it's like Git, but with an O. I know exactly what I'm looking for now. Like, I know exactly what to do with this. Is it written with Go? Is this why? Similar model to Git's. End-to-end encryption uses improved data structure with good support for large files and directories. Okay, so just say it's an improved Git. No offense to the people who wrote this, but, you know. Game of trees, if I recall. I suppose you could say that. Okay. Project.try VC. Where's that used? Project.try VC. Project find functions. Okay, so this is like the core implementation, sort of like the default implementation of a project discovery function inside of Project.el. So Project.try VC is the function that often gets called, or by default, the only function that gets called to determine whether a folder is a part of a project. And effectively what it's doing, let's see, VC file git prop dear project VC. It looks like it's storing some property on the directory maybe to mark it as a project, which is fine. Otherwise, okay, it's like filtering things out maybe and deleting them. Backend markers, marker regular expression. I see. So this is sort of the logic for searching the current and parent directories for one of these files, one of these known VCS files. Vizzle says, wrong got, gameoftrees.org. Game of Trees is a version control system which prioritizes ease of use and simplicity over flexibility. Let's see, gameoftrees.org. Okay, so it is a different thing. What is this? Developed on OpenBSD. Yeah, it looks like an OpenBSD page or a general BSD page. GOT uses Git repositories to store version data. So then what is it? Multiple Git repos? History of tracked files in a Git repository as used by Git. Huh? Stores the history of tracked files in a Git repository. Uh-huh. Must be checked out from the repository for modification. Well, so we're back to checking out files from repositories. Don't you remember the old days where you have to use CVS or Subversion and you have to check out a file that you want to edit before you actually start editing it? I'm glad we don't do that anymore. Maybe you have to at your job, and I feel very sorry that you have to deal with that. Jeez. Varanchi says, I watched your 1 hour Emacs video yesterday and finally Emacs made sense for me. Thank you. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. You know, I get sort of, you know, mixed responses on that sometimes. Some people say, oh, it's not good for beginners. And other people say, oh, it's great for beginners. So who knows? I think different people need different ways of explaining things. And me, I'm just going to throw like 1,000 words at you with my mouth and then hope that you understand what I'm saying. I need to get better with like pictures and metaphors and those kinds of things. I'm just like reading you a dictionary effectively, but I'm glad it worked for you. That's great. Fade says, I still have PTSD from CVS. Yeah, I'm trying to like forget that I ever had to use that. Captain No Beer says, I don't think it's CVS style per file checkouts. Yeah, I'm just trying to make a joke here. Don't kill the joke, Alpha Papa. I'm just trying to joke about old school computer crap. Shom says, we use this thing called File Hamster before Git because the other option was CVS or ClearCase. File Hamster. Okay. Don't give me the frowny face. Come on. We're all trying to have fun here. God says, I think we have different levels of beginner, to be honest. Yes, that's true. That's true. CVS was the gold standard for so long. Yeah, it was. That's true. Yeah, what was it? I was thinking Fox Pro, but that wasn't a version control, was it? It was Source Safe that Microsoft had long ago. Desaj says, we used FTP and Prayer back in the day. Yeah, well, I think everybody remembers the days before sort of like personal version control, when you would just, make multiple copies of the same file or directory and just hope that your computer didn't die and not lose all your backups. Fade says, remember when Subversion was the new CVS? Oh yeah, I do. And at the time it felt like it was better, but I don't know why. I don't remember. Branches. Is that why? Subversion had branches? Everybody thought branches were like the solution to all of our problems. Anyone remember RCS? I didn't have to use that one. And Shom says, I used Mercurial before Git and it was actually really good. Well, I think it's still good, but not as many people use it because Git just took over the mind share. Captain No Beer, yes, thank you. Allow me to draw your attention to the function locate dominating file. Very useful, easy to forget function in Emacs. Yes, this is like the key thing. Now, I haven't seen that version of it before. That's kind of cool, but locate dominating file is very useful for finding a particular file in a folder hierarchy. It says, starting at file, look up the directory hierarchy for a directory containing name. So if you're at a current file, it will go up to the parent directory and look for a file with a particular name. And that's how you find something like the .git folder in a kind of like a subfolder hierarchy. So this can be a very useful function if you're writing your own Emacs Lisp packages, if you have to look for files that are part of a folder hierarchy. Thank you, Alpha Papa, for pointing that out. Ed Bowler says, do we remember the special hell that was Visual Source Safe? I never used that one, but I remember when I was a kid and I would go visit my dad at where he worked, at the office where he worked. They had like all of the like boxed Microsoft software, like, Visual C++ and Visual Basic and Visual Source Safe and SQL Server and all that stuff, like those huge big white boxes back in the day. So that's the only time I saw Visual Source Safe was like in a box. I didn't use it ever. Gunn says, you had to artificially declare your change sets by labeling individual files. What is that, RCS? Sounds terrible. Okay. Vizzle says, OpenBSD still uses CVS. The point of GOT is to make their own better Git to maybe one day switch. All right, that sounds good. I mean, Git gets the job done. But also the nomenclature and the usage patterns are not very straightforward for the average person. Anybody who's become like an expert at Git remembers the days when they didn't know what the hell they were doing and they were just praying they weren't going to lose some work. Before you know about things like, reflog and rebase, etc. Captain No Beer says, Git is the worst VCS except for all the rest. I would think that Mercurial is probably pretty good. Didn't Bazaar show up back in like the mid-2000s before Git, and people were like starting gradually to move to that? Even like the GNU projects, I think some of them were starting to use Bazaar, but maybe that didn't really materialize once Git showed up. Shom says, we use Visual Source Safe in Visual Studio as recently as 2020. Ouch. Varanchi says, why are we fighting over VCS? Let's just solve problems with code. Yeah, I mean, like, that's why I just use Git, because I don't really care that much. Captain No Beard says, Emacs itself was stored in Bazaar before Eric Scott Raymond, or is that his name? Eric S. Raymond converted it to Git. That's interesting because I think I heard of Bazaar from ESR back in like 2002. Not from him directly, by reading the stuff that he wrote on his website, you know, because back then he was writing a ton of stuff. Okay. Back to the code. Where were we? All right, we've got 2 frames open looking at Project.el. Let's simplify the view here. Def method project files. Another one where we see the signifier for head VC. When backend, catter project. Okay, that's the second item in the list, which says git usually. Require, oh, okay. So they're like dynamically requiring a particular library. So there is a find library VC git. So this line right here apparently is dynamically requiring VC-git whenever we see, or any of them. I mean, whatever backend that it might have. So VC dash, let's see, find library. VC dash, let me put that there, Control DE. So Mercurial, Bazaar, CVS, DAV, dir, directory status display under VC. That's a library, okay. Git, RCS, SRC, SCCS, Arch. Never heard of that one. Mercurial, oh, okay, it's the ELC files. Anyway, it's got a few, right? Monotone. What's that? I feel like I've heard of that. Single file transactional version store. Fully disconnected operation. Judging from the site design, it's pretty old. Okay, yeah, the last updates were in 2011, so probably not super busy, but apparently somebody's using it because they added support in Emacs for it. Fade says Fossil has been coming up in a few places I can't ignore lately. Yeah, Fossil is interesting because it's basically got all your development tools rolled into a distributed database effectively, because I think it's effectively just a SQLite database, because the guy who made Fossil is also the author of SQLite. So you've got like your issue tracking, your project forum, all your source control, a lot of other stuff sort of baked into the distributed version control system. So Fossil's cool, but I just feel like it would take a lot of people starting to use Fossil before people would feel willing to learn it. And also, none of the code forges that are out there right now, like, you know, Forjo or, you know, GitHub, GitLab, etc., SourceHut, none of them support Fossil. Bitkeeper. Oh, Bitkeeper is a... it's another DCS, DVCS, whatever. Anyway. Okay, project files. Anything else cool here? Let's see. File equal p dir. Some custom logic for Mercurial and Git for some reason. Okay. I see. Captain No Beer says Bitkeeper is what inspired and forced Git. Gotcha. Chiselapp.com is the forge for Fossil. I feel like I've seen this before. Public repositories. SQLite. Yeah. I don't know if that's the official one, but it definitely is. It's the website for SQLite, that's for sure. I think the other thing is like you can actually host a website for your project using Fossil you probably need to put it behind an Nginx front end, but you can do that. Tim says, Magic's super nice, but it was cool using the VC interface, same key bindings, whether it was for Bazaar, HG, Subversion, or whatever. Vizzle says SQLite.org is fossil. True. I knew it looked familiar. Yeah, VC is interesting. However, it doesn't feel as nice to me. I would like to spend some time with it to see if I could figure out what the ideal workflow is. But with Magic, I'm just so fast that I can't imagine switching. It would almost feel like switching between evil mode key bindings and vanilla Emacs key bindings. I would be so handicapped that I wouldn't know what to do with my hands. Because like there's so much muscle memory in using Magic for me these days. Like, brap, and then I've like I've rebased my branch off of the origin remote, and I've pushed it back to the origin, and even force pushed it. Like, just the key bindings are so fast that it's hard to leave that behind. I will never use, well, I can't say never, but I don't want to ever have to use Git in the command line or in the terminal ever again because of that. Okay. Gaz says, Magic taught me Git, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, it's very good. Captain No Beer says, isn't it funny that Emacs provides the most Vimy UI to Git? Maybe. I know there's like Fugitive for Vim, but I haven't actually used it, so I don't know how good that is. Probably NeoVim has a Magic equivalent by these days. Okay. A bunch of just, back-end related stuff here. We've got all the Git back-end stuff just baked into the same file, which kind of surprises me, but the whole file is only 2,000 lines, so it's not that much code. But, judging from how I see other packages laid out, normally a sort of feature-specific set of code would be in another file like Project.Git or something, but maybe they just decided it's not necessary. Fab says many people use lazy Git in Vim too. I haven't heard that one. Okay. Project forget projects. Forget zombie projects. Forget all known projects that don't exist anymore. Okay. You mean the ones that were deleted out of anger because you just couldn't stomach any more PHP code. I understand. I feel your pain. You just had to delete the folder because you never wanted to see another line of PHP again. I get it, We're all friends here. Nobody's judging you for getting rid of your PHP project, but at some point you have to tell Emacs to forget that it exists so it doesn't try to show it to you again. So you got to call project forget zombie projects so that your PHP project is put out of its misery forever and it's not a specter of failure living in your Emacs configuration. Hey, Christian, I mentioned you earlier. Not related to the specter of failure, but related to the conversation that you and I had on email recently, which I still need to reply to. Fade says, if anybody ever surprises me with a Magento checkout again, I'm quitting. What is that? All right. Gun says, MetaX Visual Basic Mode. That would be pretty impressive. It's a huge PHP e-commerce framework. I feel like I heard that name before, so yes, makes sense. Email is patient. Yes, people are patient. Email is just email, and I tend to forget that I have emails to reply to. Okay, so if you read the newsletter this week, you probably saw project switch commands because I talked about that there. We don't need to go into detail on that, but it is another customization point for what you can do with Project.el. Magento, last job use it, says Dave. Yeah, that sounds horrifying. PHP, I'm just making jokes here. I mean, PHP has been around for a long time. It gets the job done too. It's not the best option, but it gets the job done. Okay. What is this? The same thing. It's got a menu for project switch commands. Project switch use entire map. Use the entire project prefix map. Only recognize commands listed in project switch commands and will signal an error. So what's in project prefix map by default? Oh. Okay, so it will show you everything that's in that set. Actually is not bad. So check this out. Control XPP, we pick a project and it gives us the little menu at the bottom, right? Those are hand-picked actions that are a part of the project switch commands. If you change setq project switch, come on now, project switch use entire map to true, then Control XPP, select a project. Oh, it doesn't do it. Only recognize commands. If non-nil, all the keys. Okay, even if they aren't displayed. So let's look at that project prefix map once more. What do we have in here? Let's say VC dir, okay? Control XPP. V is there, E is there. I think I saw an R. We don't see R listed here, but if I press R, then it does actually run that command. But if I turn that value back to nil, Control XPP, select the directory R, yeah, it won't do anything. Okay. So if you know what the keys are in project prefix map, which is everything in Control XPP, I think. I'm sorry, no, Control XP. If you say, if you press Control XP, Control H, then you'll get that list. Actually, I get this list because I'm using Embark, but you will get a similar list in a pop-up window. So any of these keys are valid if you set project switch use entire map to T, okay? Let's see. Christian says, nobody here is using Node, right? No, I use Node a lot because I actually feel that JavaScript and Node are pretty good, and I get a lot done with those. So I don't have a problem with JavaScript. Christian says, I just started the PHP project and now I have FOMO. Great end of the week. Yeah, JavaScript is good. You know, in terms of reach and available libraries and platforms you can deploy it to, I feel like it's the best. But I would prefer to be using Scheme. Dave says, JavaScript is among the best of the worst. I guess that's probably the friendliest way you could put it. You know, I do a lot of scheme style programming in JavaScript. That's the reason why I like JavaScript, because I don't use classes or any of the fancy crap. I just write a bunch of functions and I export them from modules, and I do scheme style stuff with lexical scoping, you know. Now that lexical scoping is actually a part of the language and you're not just in dynamic scoping hell and having weird problems as a result of that. I think we've been out of that since like ES 2015 or something, maybe. I don't remember which spec it was where things started to get better, but it's a lot better than it used to be. Yeah, Dave says the language is pretty decent these days. The ecosystem is another story. Well, the ecosystem is just that sludge of half-conceived libraries that people just throw up on NPM, and you catch yourself using something that is not so good, even though it has 1.8 million downloads. Project key prompt style. Which presentation to use when asking to choose a command by key? When brackets, use text brackets and bold for the character. Otherwise, use the face help key binding. I mean, I don't want to say we're getting a little bit too over customizable here, but why? I don't really need to set that. I didn't know it was an option. I didn't need to know it was an option. Maybe it's an option because it used to be one way, and then someone said, hey, let's make it look better. So they added a new way, but they had to make the old way still work, right? See you, Eric. Thanks for joining us. Faith says, I found out JavaScript was originally written in Common Lisp. Yeah, Brendan Ike really wanted it to be Scheme. So I think a lot of the semantics are Scheme inspired, at least to some degree. But the dynamic scoping thing is definitely not Scheme inspired. Okay, prompt style, key map prompt. Okay, we're almost done with the code here. That's good. Project switch project command must be the internal implementation. Dave says it's reasonably Lispy until you notice if is a statement. Well, you know, I don't really use, okay, I use if obviously, but I tend to use like coalescing Boolean operators a lot more, like, you know, and, or question mark, those types of things instead of if statements. I tend to try to make all my JavaScript code be more expression-based and functional looking than procedural. And you can do that in a lot of ways. So that's why I'm okay using JavaScript, because I feel like I can do a lot. And TypeScript also is nice whenever you need a little bit more safety. I don't know if I just made up some term that doesn't exist with coalescing Boolean operators, but it's real now. Grizzly says, talking gibberish. Started and stopped programming COBOL in the mid-'80s. Ouch. Yeah, the numbers in JavaScript are complete bananas. It's nuts. Type coercion also is pretty stupid. I don't know. I really feel like you shouldn't allow someone to add a string and a number together and have it work somehow. It's not good. Not good. You really do need to have some sanity. I mean, it's a dynamic language, but it can't be too dynamic. Then everything turns into soup. Gun says, what, Roman numerals? No, like, I don't remember exactly what happens. Let's go into vterm. Node. 1 plus 2. 1, 2. So it turns that 2 into a string and then appends it to the previous string. Does it work in reverse? 2 plus 1, 2, 1. So these things shouldn't happen because that is a class of problems that's very hard to track down. Duck typing. Nah, this is change the D to an F, and then you'll see what the mentality is of JavaScript typing, because they don't even do it. JS is lexically scoped. Well, it is only with the newer stuff, right? With like let and arrow functions, etc. Christian says, now where's that mandatory link to Gary Bernhard's Watt talk? Yeah, that one's pretty classic, right? Bernhard Watt. Destroy all software. Appropriately named website. Yeah, 2012. So that one's been around a while. Yes, TypeScript it definitely. How would I say that without being totally offensive? TypeScript is the methadone to JavaScript's heroin. No, that's not really a good analogy. Old JS is lexically scoped too? Okay. There's a lot of dynamic stuff going on in there though. Hard no on TypeScript, come on man. Like, typing helps whenever you are trying to like make changes to API functions and whatnot, and you don't want your code to magically break because you forgot about some usage of a function somewhere. Okay. What else we got here? Project switch project. Symbol P, project switch commands. Yes, this is where it does that check to see if project switch commands is a function or not. And it will return that to be called with call interactively. Otherwise, it will defer to project switch project command. Oh, okay, it's probably prompting in that function. So project -- switch project command. Commands menu, commands map. Yeah, that's what it looks like. So it does that prompt. And then it returns that function to then be called interactively. Dave says, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I stand by it. Well, the thing I don't like about having to use TypeScript is that it's like a pre-compilation step that makes it a little less smooth to develop an app. Obviously, you can turn on the compiler watcher on so that it automatically recompiles every time you save your file, but I don't know, it just adds another level of tooling you have to deal with. I really don't want to use anything that compiles to JS, says the guy who's writing a scheme to WebAssembly compiler. Not exactly the same thing. I need guardrails, so if I have to use JavaScript, I need TypeScript to save me from myself. Well, I was writing a lot of JavaScript in the last week, and there was a moment where I was like, I really need to start using TypeScript here because I'm going to end up shooting myself in the foot, and I won't know it until it's too late. Ed says, in JS, this is the only fully dynamically scoped variable. var does, oh, okay, yeah, you're right, thank you. That's true. var does some scope hoisting thing. It isn't dynamic scope. Thank you, yes. D. Thompson says, we're doing an end run around the Tower of Babel of JS compiler tools. I will be extremely happy when I can do that. You know what I really want? I want to be able to write progressive web apps using Hoot, compiling to WebAssembly. Now, obviously, that means that any browser on a mobile device that runs PWAs needs to have all of the stuff there for Hoot's output. But I think we're pretty much there already. I would guess that even Firefox on mobile now has the necessary features. Maybe on Safari it doesn't have it, but writing a PWA with Hoot compiling to WebAssembly might be really cool, actually. I've been thinking a lot about PWAs recently. And by PWA, I mean parents with attitude. Gunn says, what about the Mesh project? Well, Mesh is like a passion project. It's a fun project, but I don't know, like I'm trying to like decide how much I want to write a new scheme implementation or try to like contribute some of the ideas that I have to Guile instead. But I don't know how willing people are to entertain some of the ideas I have. So I don't know, like that's something I'll try to get into later when I have a little bit more time. But I really do want to do a lot more practical application development with Scheme, and Guile is a very good choice for that. But there's certain things I want to do that I think Guile needs a little bit of work on, like let's say Windows support or general cross-platform. Also writing apps for the browser, but obviously Hoot solves that problem. At least it will as it continues to develop. Keep poking at Mesh and experimenting. I do want to. It's fun. I mean, that's the problem. If you like complexity and never-ending sets of problems to solve, write a compiler. And if you really want to get into the shit, write a Scheme compiler, because then you can do all the things like CPS transforms and continuations and lots of fun stuff. So yeah, writing a Scheme compiler will keep you busy for a very long time. Dave says, I need to like pay someone to make Guile on Windows good. You just need to find a way to justify that as an expense for Sprightly, because it would be very nice, I think. LC says, I'm partial to a more breadth-first approach to checking a package's code versus depth-first, top-to-bottom read, meaning using outline, outshine, progressive folding, unfolding, layering, and such. That is probably a much better way to approach what I just did. I'll keep that in mind for next time. Getting an idea for the available knobs, def customs, and interactive commands, and or main API entry points, but only at signature level first, and then deeper dive into the bodies selectively. Yes. Me, I just jump in and start looking at stuff. That's just how I do it. So I probably should structure this a little bit better for future instances. So thanks for the feedback on that. All right. Anything else useful here? That's it. That's the end of the file. So what did we learn from this? Well, the common Lisp object system style generic method system is pretty cool. Works very well in Emacs Lisp. If you're writing a more sophisticated Emacs package, you should certainly consider using it. Probably not very useful for writing a configuration, but who knows? Maybe if you want to write a configuration system for Emacs that uses something like this, it could be pretty cool. It is very flexible. You can introduce your own type of or concept for a project and have all your own method implementations for the different things that the functions that this package provides. But obviously, most people are just going to use the built-in version control support, which is primarily Git or maybe the other options. But yeah, I think it's a good option for this type of deep dive because it's not that much code, but it does actually do some flexible things in an interesting way. So it's worth studying this to take a look. Grizzly says, what should I study to catch up on programming environment? You mean like using Emacs for different languages? I don't really know. Someone else is asking about that, I think in the IRC chat. And at some point, I do need to get back into making some videos with like recommended setups for different languages. But you know, I started that 3 years ago and kind of fell off because honestly, it's probably one of the more boring aspects of making Emacs content, like trying to explain to you how to set up Emacs for a given language, just because, first of all, if you're not familiar with the tools already, then you have to learn them. You have to come up with like a sample project or find a repo to use as a test run whenever you're showing the tools. And then, you know, there's like 15 different tools to use for things like language servers or debuggers or linters for all the different languages. So there's just so many different things you have to kind of put together for a given language that it was a lot of time investment, which would be valuable to people. But I don't know. I think maybe a better way to approach that is for people to share their own setups for various languages and platforms, like on the forum or on their own blog posts or whatever. And then, you know, I can like base some information off of one of those and obviously give the person credit. But yeah, it's difficult to have comprehensive guides for various different languages, I think. Tim says, isn't everything moving towards tree setter and LSP? Yeah, but even language servers, setting up a language server for a given language often requires that you have the ecosystem for that language installed, like whatever package manager that is needed. And that can even be a headache sometimes, knowing what to install for that. Then installing the language server, whether it's an executable you have to download or if it's a package you install via the package manager. And a lot of language server implementations don't support all the features that you would expect to have. So it's really hit or miss. So there's a lot of reasons why LSP isn't like the 100% solution for dev environments. Let's see. Dave says, to enable Geyser plus Project.el, do Geyser REPL per project? Wow, it has that? Geyser REPL. That must be in a newer version than I have installed, but that would be cool. Fade says the model is ahead of time compilation. Well, it's like having precompiled bytecode modules that get loaded up. That's what Guile does anyway. Is it? Geyser REPL. See, the thing is, I'm on an old poll of geeks, so... Peter says, I have good experience with Emacs, direnv, Nixshell, and LSP. Yeah, direnv is cool. Nixshell I haven't used much. There's a similar package called bufferenv, but it really started to annoy me whenever it would try to install the manifest for every directory I would go into. And, you know, when Geeks takes a while to install the manifest and you get this pop-up that's kind of churning for like, you know, 3-4 minutes every time you open a folder, it just kind of got annoying after a while. I stopped using it. Yeah, bufferenv is good, but it's better to turn that on selectively, I think, and not use like the directory variable hack thing to make it run every time you jump into a directory. Dave says, I'm annoyed by that, but I haven't found anything better. I mean, it's good to have the ability to launch or to set up a Geeks profile from a manifest or from a geeks.scm file and then have all the environment variables set up in your buffer so that you have access to the load path settings or programs that are in the profile, etc. Yeah, I'm actually using Control-HV, Geyser, REPL. Yeah, it's not in my Geyser. Let's see. What Geyser am I using? Find library, Geyser, Guile? Let's just say Geyser. This is 0.30. I don't know how old that is. Geyser Emacs. Is this repo up to date? They have tags. One tag. 0.2 from 2012. Super useful. Maybe, oh no. Geyser, oh really? Geyser REPL. Maybe that doesn't get auto-loaded at the beginning. So Geyser REPL per project. Hey, there it is. Whether to spawn a separate REPL per project. Yeah, you definitely need that because otherwise it's a really big headache. That's cool though. I need to add that to my setup guide for the Guile course for sure. Thanks for telling me about that. I like to be able to do a Control-X PS to open a project shell, and the shell automatically has all the Geek Shell stuff. Yeah, that is good for sure. Okay, so I think that's it, right? We covered all of Project.el. We learned a few things. Hopefully it was useful to you as well. Let me know in the comments of the video or come by the IRC or the forum and we can talk about it further. If you liked the code dive and you want to see more things covered in this way, but maybe with some improvements like LC suggested in the YouTube chat, leave a comment or let me know about it elsewhere. I'm definitely interested to talk about other really cool things. Certainly want to talk about some scheme projects, other general stuff that exists in system crafting landscape. So even like org mode, we could probably look at some org mode code, right? Kappa Newbird says more code diving. I'll have to look at some of your projects. We'll take a look at some Alpha Papa code and see what we can find in there. All right. Dave says, fun stream. Was walking my dog for a good chunk of it, so I was just listening. Yeah, you didn't have to watch me gesturing and gesticulating wildly for all of my fake rage. All right, folks. I hope all of you have a great weekend. Definitely check out the link to the hands-on Guile Scheme for Beginners course. Registration ends next week, so if you're interested in jumping in on that, let me know. Also, like I mentioned, there is a spot or two sponsored by the community that you might be able to jump into if you otherwise wouldn't be able to join the course. So just send me an email about that. There's some information about that at the very beginning of the show notes. So just take a look at that and just contact me. All right. So until next time, hope you all have a great weekend and happy hacking. We'll see you. Thanks for being with me.